It's a humid summer night in 1983. You push open the glass door of your local mall's arcade and step into another world. The air is thick with the smell of pizza, buttered popcorn, and fizzy soda, all mixing with a hint of warm electronics. Neon signs and game marquees bathe the room in a rainbow glow, creating a kaleidoscope of blues, pinks, and purples. The cacophony hits you in the chest. 8-bit game melodies and digitized sound effects overlapping with the chatter and laughter of kids. In one corner, Pac-Man's iconic Waka Waka soundtrack competes with the pew pew of Space Invaders. In another, the click click of a pinball machine kicking out a free play triggers a triumphant shout from someone nearby. You haven't dropped a single quarter yet, and already your senses are electrified. You reach into your pocket and feel the comforting weight of tokens. That metal clink, the sound of potential. Each quarter a ticket to a new adventure. The floor is a loud carpet with wild geometric patterns, subtly sticky from decades of spilled soda. Along the walls, the hulking arcade cabinets line up side by side like magical portals, each screen offering a different universe to conquer. A pair of friends furiously work the joysticks on Street Fighter, drawing a small crowd as digital warriors battle on screen. A kid about your age is intensely focused on Donkey Kong, jumping barrels to save the pixelated damsel in distress. Over by the Pac-Man machine, you see a group cheering as someone closes in on the high score. The iconic yellow character feverishly gobbling the last pellets while ghosts give chase. This was the arcade, the place to be for a generation. For Gen X who grew up in the late 70s and early 80s, the arcade wasn't just entertainment, it was a social hub, a refuge, and a technological wonderland all wrapped into one. It was the place where friendships were forged over co-op games, where rivalries were settled with a joystick, and where you could escape the real world for a few blissful hours. The arcade shaped how Gen X played, how they socialized, and ultimately how the entire gaming industry evolved. It's a story of community and technology, of booming pop culture and bittersweet nostalgia. So grab a handful of quarters as we journey through the golden age of arcades, where we explore how these dimly lit halls of blinking machines became the shared living room for a generation, and how the legacy of arcades changed gaming forever. To truly appreciate why arcades captured the hearts of Gen X, let's rewind to the beginning. In the early 70s, the term arcade only meant pinball halls filled with mechanical amusements and not video games. That changed in 1972 with the invention of Pong, a simple electronic tennis game that appeared in bars and bowling alleys. Pong's addictive gameplay launched a coin-operated revolution and kicked open the door for what then followed. By the late 70s, arcades were popping up everywhere. In 1978, Space Invaders landed from Japan, becoming a global sensation and marking the dawn of a golden age. Legend even has it that Space Invaders was so popular it caused a shortage of 100 yen coins in Japan. Whether this is true or not, the game created an unstoppable wave. In 1980 came Pac-Man, this cheerful yellow character becoming an icon overnight, complete with his own catchy theme song and Saturday morning cartoons. Pac-Man broadened gaming's appeal, attracting kids of all kinds, girls and boys alike. In the following year, we got Donkey Kong, which introduced Mario, who was then called Jumpman, proving video games could have lovable characters and storytelling. Soon, classics like Galaga, Frogger, Centipede, and Asteroids filled arcades, making each cabinet a magnet for pocketfuls of quarter. Meanwhile, the era's backdrop, the Cold War and rapid technological advances added a deeper resonance. Games like Missile Command reflected real-world anxieties, yet allowed kids to take control. Arcades thrived alongside the malls, music videos, and MTV-era culture of the age. Movies like Tron or Fast Times at Ridgemont High immortalized this vibrant scene in the collective zeitgeist. By 1982, arcades had become mainstream entertainment, earning billions, outperforming even Hollywood films and pop music. Arcades filled shopping centers, convenience stores, movie theaters, and even laundromats. They were impossible to avoid, and we wouldn't have wanted to anyway. Yet, by 1983, the boom had hit a downturn. Too many games, declining quality, and an over-saturated market led to the great video game crash. But this wasn't the end for arcades, because they would bounce back, adapt, and continue shaping gaming. For a lot of Gen X, arcades were the ultimate third place. They weren't home, school, or work, but somewhere you could just be yourself among friends. If you were a teenager during this time, the arcade was likely where you spent every spare minute, and it's hard to overstate just how important these neon sanctuaries were in the social lives of a generation. Today, you might hop on Discord or join an online lobby to socialize with friends through games, but in the arcade era, you had to bike over to a shopping center or corner arcade and physically gather, and the moment you stepped through those doors, you were on common ground. It didn't matter which clique you belonged to at school or what troubles you had at home. Everyone was here for the games, and in that sense, arcades were the great equalizer. If you were good at a game, you earned respect. People knew each other by high score initials on the leaderboard or by simple reputation. Friendships and rivalries flourished in those dim aisles. You'd make new friends just by hovering around the same machine. Perhaps you'd team up with a stranger for a round of Double Dragon, and by the end of it, you were laughing like old buddies. On the flip side, rivalries could be intense, but in hindsight were fun and formative. Maybe there was that one kid in your neighborhood who always took the high score out Galaga before you could, or the local Street Fighter II champ whom everyone wanted to dethrone. These face-to-face competitions taught Gen X a lot about sportsmanship, and unlike anonymous online gaming, in an arcade, if you boasted or acted like a sore loser, you'd have to deal with the consequences from people around you. There was a sort of unwritten code of conduct that gamers picked up. For example, placing your quarter on a cabinet's glass meant it was your turn next, and everyone respected that. You didn't walk away with someone else's quarter on the machine unless you were forfeiting your turn. Cutting in line or distracting someone mid-game was a big no-no, and if someone was on a roll, maybe even nearing a record, folks would generally step back a bit and let them concentrate, and even maybe cheer them on. And in this way, they became the earliest esports arenas. Arcades weren't just about competition. They were genuine social hangouts. Picture a bunch of 14-year-olds crowding around a Pac-Man machine, taking turns, sharing tips, and celebrating each other's high scores. For many Gen Xers, this was the after-school club. Parents knew if they couldn't find their kid to check the arcade, it's where birthdays were celebrated, where weekend plans revolved, and where countless teens lingered long after their quarters ran out, just soaking in the atmosphere and watching others play. Even if you were flat broke, it was still fun to hang out, watch the attract mode, and chat with friends. Life for Gen X kids had its own challenges. They were dubbed the latchkey kids, often coming home to an empty house because both parents worked. Many of them navigated divorce in the family or the general spike in economic and social uncertainties of the 70s and 80s. In this way, the arcade offered an escape. It was loud and exciting. One Gen Xer may even reminisce that their house was chaotic, but at the arcade they could just be a kid and forget everything else for a little while. The games gave goals to achieve when real life might have felt out of control. There was something almost comforting about the routine of it, exchanging your dollar for 4 quarters, hearing them clink, and the whoosh of a game starting up. Arcades were safe havens for many youth, as safe as a dark room full of hyper kids can be. Sure, some adults fretted the arcades were seedy, but for the kids, the arcade was a place you felt you belonged. The arcade also functioned as a technological showcase, pushing gaming innovation years ahead of home systems. Early consoles like Atari couldn't compete with the bright graphics and immersive controls of arcade machines. Arcades introduced revolutionary ideas, the platform jumping gameplay of Donkey Kong, Street Fighter II's fighting combos, and co-op multiplayer in games like Gauntlet, creative controls, steering wheels in Outrun, flight yokes in Star Wars, and dance pads in Dance Dance Revolution made arcades a technical playground. These innovations directly influenced home consoles. The NES and Sega Genesis often marketed themselves as delivering arcade-quality graphics at home. Gaming staples like boss battles, limited lives, and power-ups all originated in the arcade and shaped how we still play today. Arcades ran on quarters, or tokens depending on the venue. Those metal coins were precious, each representing another chance at victory or redemption. The local arcade had its ecosystem, regulars who knew the games inside and out, newbies learning the ropes, and the employees who fixed the machines and kept the peace. Owners balanced investments in new games against quarter earnings, creating a constantly evolving lineup of cabinets. Arcades weren't cheap ventures, but when they worked, the excitement was unmatched. Players competed fiercely, chasing high scores that could grant local fame. The arcades were vibrant, noisy, and endlessly entertaining, a social hub buzzing with energy. All good things, however, come to an end. By the 1990s, powerful home consoles and online gaming pulled players away. As games at home matched arcade quality, fewer quarters dropped into cabinets. Arcades became financially unsustainable, with many quietly closing, replaced by retail stores or vacant spaces. For Gen X, this was a bittersweet moment. Although home gaming offered convenience, losing arcades also meant losing treasured community spaces. Nostalgia took hold as arcade culture faded, and yet arcades never truly died. Gen Xers brought them back as retro-themed bars or nostalgic museums, and new generations discovered classics like Pac-Man and Street Fighter II. Pop culture embraced arcade nostalgia through shows like Stranger Things, movies like Ready Player One, and Wreck-It Ralph, who celebrated this golden age. Arcades evolved into new experiences. VR arcades, gaming cafes, and esports tournaments revived the social and competitive spirit. The legacy of arcades endures, reminding us that gaming is best when shared. Arcades shaped Gen X profoundly, influencing gaming culture forever. And beyond nostalgia, they remind us of the joy in playing together, side by side. So here's to the arcade, the noisy, neon-lit sanctuary that captured a generation's heart. Whether you ruled Galaga, Pac-Man, or Street Fighter, the arcade was your stage. And while the machines might fade, their legacy lives in every game we play today. Thank you for joining me on this nostalgic ride. So tell me in the comments, what was your favorite arcade game? Drop your stories below and let's reminisce about quarter-powered days, those moments that were truly the time of our lives. Insert a coin to continue.